All right, if you're just joining us, we are putting in the chat, where are you zooming in from? We're zooming in from all over the country, all over the world even, and we'd love to hear where you're calling from today.
And thank you for being here this afternoon with us. I'm Andrea Honigsveld.
And I am Elise White Diaz. So I see people calling from Connecticut, all over the place. Excellent, excellent. And they're still coming in to the Zoom. Now, so we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves to you. I have the extreme pleasure of introducing the one and only Andrea Honigspeld to you. And I first got to know her when she came to my district in Texas, and she began talking about collaboration. And I'm like, wow, this is intelligent. This is beautiful and amazing. This is the real deal. She is a professor of TESOL teacher education at Malloy University in New York, and she is an author consultant of so many books. She has written so many books that are such treasures to our field. And I can tell you, because I know her personally, that not only does she talk the talk, she walks the walk of collaboration. And it is such a pleasure to learn from collaboration from her and to collaborate with her.
Well, the honor is all mine. And here's one example of many, many collaborations that I have been engaged in. And I am so honored to collaborate with you, Elise. And believe it or not, your duplicate is in the waiting room again. So we have lots of Elises here today. But the one and only Elise White Diaz is presenting here with me today. She is with Silence Education now, and she trains teachers and administrators across the country to collaborate to better serve multilingual learners. So we're so excited to bring this to you today as an overview of our combined expertise around collaboration.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. And also, my background is in trauma-informed education.
Oh, there was another line there. That's right. That's right. So you might have noticed that this presentation is partially based upon a publication, Portraits of Collaboration, that I co-edited with Maria Delve, but so many educators from around the country and internationally contributed to that book because we were seeking out success stories, exemplary practices, not theory, not research, but actionable strategies, sort of classroom-based research, clinical expertise, authentic experiences with collaboration. So we're going to build upon that book, but we're going to go beyond what's in that publication. And here it is. And just to return to that book for a moment, these are those many contributors. I don't know if anybody's here today with us. If you are here and if you contributed to that book, please say hello in the chat box. But if you are not, we know that you recognize some of these experts, some of these colleagues or educators who are very active on social media and beyond, sharing about their successful practices related to collaboration. And Katie just entered the waiting room. That is amazing. Look at that, just on cue right there. Katie Topple is joining us as I am introducing the many, many, many educators who have shared their success stories, both their challenges and their opportunities for enhanced collaboration.
Right. So now we're going to take a minute and talk about the goals of the webinar. And one of those goals is to address common obstacles to collaboration. Now, as I get to travel the country and work with teachers from different districts, what I'm observing is that a lot of us are trying very astutely to leverage that ESL teacher, ESL specialist to build the capacity of the general education content teacher for our multilingual students. This is a movement that's happening and it is beautiful and it's wonderful. However, sometimes it doesn't work out exactly as we hope that it does. So we're going to be addressing those common obstacles. And then we're going to identify 3 actionable ways to support collaboration between ESL and ELD specialists and general education teachers. Those are our goals for today. Now, a little bit about what you can expect in this 1 hour webinar that we have for you. We will be sending out a recording of this by email afterwards. I know a lot of people had their AI assistants who were asking to record it, so I said no, I'm sorry, because I will be sending you the recording via email afterwards. We will be using the chat as we have been already, and then we also have additional resources on a companion website, and in just a minute, we will drop that link into the chat for you.
I just did, because that's what you
Perfect.
do when you collaborate. So that link
Yes.
that is on the screen that Elise just introduced, the companion website has many available downloadable resources already for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea.
So before we get started, let's look at some essential roadmaps. What guides us when you look at a roadmap, even though we don't really open up our bound paper maps anymore, we just go on Google or MapQuest and we just figure out where we have to go. But it's really helpful to think about roadmaps as guiding documents for us to get to where we need to be with collaboration. So let's take a look at a few of them. The first one is going to be offered to us by TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, our international advocacy organization. A few years ago, they published an amazing book, which is also available online as the Six Principles guiding document. And if you notice those principles, front and center, principle one is to know our students. We always start with the students. It is all about the students. Those beautiful petals, those 4 principles, 2, 3, 4, 5, focus on instruction and assessment. But what keeps everything together, this is where we really get to that collaborative piece, is principle 6, which is to engage and collaborate within a community of practice. And this is really important that we embrace, even if we are in a standalone or pull-out kind of an ESL, ELL, ELD, or ENL context. We can't do this work alone. This is too important, too challenging, and also too rewarding to just hold on to this practice for ourselves. Another guiding document that many of you might be using, those of you who are in New York or Texas, those of us who are in those states or Florida, we're not using it. But if you are in a WIDA state, the 2020 standards introduced 4 key principles or guiding principles, big ideas. And one of those big ideas, of course, is collaboration. Collaboration among all stakeholders. So we're broadening that scope of who collaborates with whom, including institutions of higher education and families and community members and researchers. But most frequently, it's teachers, educators, and administrators working together for the sake of multilingual learners. And when you look at research, we're not going to make it a research-heavy session, I promise, but just a few overarching themes that have emerged from research are summarized here. So we really need to collaborate and make it a team effort so that we support our students' language and literacy development across academic grade levels. We have to make sure that our students are exposed to high-quality curriculum and that there are effective and supportive learning environments created for them. And most of all, we can't do separate and evil and equal, because it's never equal. We have to make sure that we're integrating our students in the school community, in the classroom community, and they have a sense of belonging.
So I'm having an announcement right here. So Andrea, would you mind taking this one?
Oh, sure, no problem at all. So what we're going to ask you to do now in the chat, just finish this sentence frame. What are your common barriers to collaboration? What are you encountering in your own context? So some of you are jumping right away into the chat box, and there is a common theme emerging already. I hardly finished my sentence, and you're already telling us that time is definitely one of those most frequently cited obstacles, barriers, or common planning time, resistance and time. So many of you are adding another layer to this challenge, time and teacher workload. sometimes beliefs and differences in understandings of what we hope to achieve are also part of those barriers. Teacher refusal to change instruction or teacher buy-in. So again, the factors that are surrounding our colleagues, our beliefs, our practices, not wanting to get out of our comfort zone. So there are lots of shared challenges that are identified here. I'm just scrolling back up to see a couple of others I might have missed, such as engagement and communication, lack of understanding of the gen ed topics, schedule, availability if a co-teacher refuses to co-teach. So very complex challenges, Elise. What do you think? What are you seeing?
Yes, there are a lot of complex challenges, and a lot of them fall into something that we're all experiencing in terms of common barriers to collaboration. Time. Time is the number one answer. We have so much on our plates. We have so much to do as educators and educational leaders. How do we forge time for teachers to collaborate together when their schedules don't align? How do we do this? The next one is lack of parity. And so, even if we express that we are all on the same level, we're all equals, sometimes some teachers feel like there is kind of a different status level or they're not on the same playing field with other teachers. And then who has the control, who has the influence? This is another issue that's a common barrier to collaboration. Then we have confusion and communication issues. And so sometimes we miss each other in our communication. Sometimes we're indirect. We don't say what needs to be said. And then the last one is perhaps it's just not part of the school or district culture yet. And so, Andrea, I'm wondering, how have you seen these common barriers to collaboration in your work?
Well, right now in the chat box, coincidentally, just about all of them have already been identified. And these are the common themes that we find in all of our field-based research or interaction with teachers. Most often, time is the number one concern. That is true. But I also see how the barrier has to be the way. So if we know that these are the common barriers, we have to think proactively. How do we advocate with our administrators to take a closer look at that master schedule or comprehensive schedule? How can we better utilize the time? Because just because time is given, it might not mean that time is utilized most effectively. The same with lack of parity or confusion, communication. Those are aspects of teacher to teacher, peer to peer collaboration, and shifting the culture in the school has to be a top down, bottom up, meet in the middle kind of process. That's what I have found in my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Now, as I am coaching teachers, and I'm sure Andrea can attest to this as well, how do we address these challenges within the circle of our control or influence? Because some of these things are just outside of our control and influence. So let's kind of identify what are the things that we can control and influence. We can't control other people's responses, right? We sometimes there's district initiatives that may not align with the same goals that we particularly have as the ESL specialist, maybe. How do we use our time? That is something that is in our sphere of influence that we do have some amount of control over. And then who I'm paired with. If we attempt a collaboration and we find out that this maybe is not the best pairing, can we move on and find somebody else? Our boundaries are under our control, right? And then also our reactions. So it's important to help us to coach teachers in these things about what can we really focus on within our influence and our control. And Andrea, how have you used this idea in your work?
Oh, definitely. This is really, really important because we can't feel helpless that, oh, I just have no power, no control. Somebody else is making all the decisions for me or about me. So earlier I mentioned that advocacy with administrators, with peers on the grade level or in your middle school or high school team that you're already working in would be a really important aspect of challenging some of those difficulties or obstacles that you're facing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we come to the point in the webinar where we're going to introduce these 3 high impact strategies, things that you could take back to your district and just apply immediately into your instruction or into your support of teachers. So you'll know that you found a high impact strategy when you see this symbol on the slide. Are we ready?
Yes, we're ready.
All right, so here is the first one. It is to visualize growth little by little. And the idea is this is our first strategy. We're going to reset our expectations around collaboration. Now, I recently learned about forest succession. And the idea is this: when a land is transforming into greener pastures, it begins with those pioneer plants, the beginning ones that just kind of set the stage and prepare the soil for everyone else. And then little by little, as time goes on, it becomes deeper and richer and greener, and more growth happens until it becomes a full, complete forest. And so, just as it happens in nature, it also happens in collaboration, that we recognize that collaboration is a process that begins and it gets deeper and richer over time. And so this is very helpful for teachers because I know that when I began collaboration, I wanted 100% of everything right now. Right? I'm like, why? Let's have the deepest collaboration with this teacher that I just met. Let's have it tomorrow. But that's not how relationships work. And so, our first top tip is helping our teachers to reset our expectations around collaboration and realizing that we are making growth, but it's just happening in a little by little and it's happening over time.
And this comes to us from change theory when we
Mhm.
pay attention to tracking our progress, breaking down our goals, recognizing that incremental change is controlled growth, that we're not going to look for radical or immediate transformational change, but those small step-by-step, manageable but systematic improvements will result in impact on student learning.
Now, we need to address reluctance to collaborate. And what does that look and sound like? I think that Andrew and I both have some personal stories about this. Do you want to go ahead and share your story, Andrea, about reluctance to collaboration?
I was also reading in the chat box that there are lots of examples there already. So reluctance to collaboration simply means maybe not showing up to a meeting, not being on time, not including a colleague when there are some changes to the curriculum or instruction. So some of those also small acts of resistance or reluctance could be quite bothersome and could undermine the success of the team. How about your experiences, Elise?
Yes, I remember back when I was working with the district, there was one teacher that I was so excited to co-teach with. She had volunteered for it. We talked to the principal, and so we were ready to go. And then a little while later, she came to me and she said, "Elise, my classroom management of these seventh graders is such that I feel like Chris Pratt in Jurassic Park when he's trying to tame the velociraptors. If anyone remembers that scene when he has his hands up and he says to the velociraptors, step back, step back. It's a tense scene. The classroom management was crazy among those seventh graders, pumped full of hormones. And she said to me, Elise, if I have somebody new step into this context, it's going to disrupt the whole situation. And her response was very telling about what she thought about me and my ability to manage a classroom and her ability to manage a classroom as well. And so that was one time that I experienced reluctance to collaboration. And it was about belief systems that some of the other teacher held. And at that point in my trajectory, I needed more support on how to address that teacher and how to help kind of shift her mindset a little bit.
Yeah, it's taking on a new perspective and embracing that unknown or that tolerance for ambiguity is a really big part of this successful collaboration.
Oops. Now, another part of it is reframing our teaching practices. And so this is an infographic made by my friend Valentina, and it's helping teachers to understand that these are not my students, these are our students. So collaboration does not add work, it actually reduces workload. And instead of I plan or I manage the class by myself, we do it together. And these are our responsibilities. And so it's helping all teachers to really reframe our mindsets towards collaboration. Anything you
You know
want to say
what's
about
really
this?
good about it, Elise, is that some of us, and please put that in the chat box if that refers to you. So I come from Eastern Europe. I was born, raised, and educated, and became a teacher in Hungary. So much of the world represents a collectivistic mindset of culture. There's the individualistic, the Western, the US-based, the American mindset, which is pulling yourself up by the bootstrap, and other examples of how you just have to do it alone, make sure that you just successful on your own. But if you come from a culture in which collaboration is already a norm, then this makes even more sense that we have to share the work, we have to share the students. So it's about what we teach in kindergarten, which is sharing is caring. So anybody grew up in that type of a culture, put that in the chat box if you are from that type of a culture where collaboration is the norm already.
I
Yes,
love that.
yes. Thank you so much, Pushpanjali, that collectivistic cultures are already present. And yes, it is an awesome sketch note. And this sketch note is actually in the book that we're going to be later raffling off. So, and a huge thank you to Valentina for sharing it with us.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Eliona.
Now, one of the pieces that is very important to collaboration is that mindful communication. So it's awareness of tone, both in written tone and in verbal communication, because we know that communication, what is the fun statistic? It's like 90% voice tone and facial expression and 10% words or something like that, right? And so it's also about connecting with people emotionally. And so realizing that sometimes this other teacher is just stressed out right now and they need a minute, they need a breather before we come back and to try something that's new. It involves active listening and really listening to understand rather than listening to respond. And also reading the subtext of what is being said. This is a lot of things that I encounter where sometimes teachers say, I just can't do it. The students can't do it. And what the subtext is behind that is, I feel overwhelmed right now. So when we can address that subtext, then we can really get into the meat of the issue. Anything you want to say about it, Andrea?
I think you froze up for a moment, but maybe just for me. So this last idea that you said, how mindful we have to be with our communication. I often like to mention the 3 Ps as a possible way to practice it. So something very practical. And in the chat box, you could quickly put in a yes or no if you have heard of the 3 Ps, which are pause, paraphrase, and pose questions. Because when I pause, I don't talk. When I paraphrase, then I say, at least I think I heard you say that active listening leads to better understanding. So I'm still staying with your idea rather than pushing my own idea. And then the final point is posing questions. Tell me more about how to read that subtext. Why is that important? So this type of, remember the 3 Ps, pause, paraphrase, and pose questions, is a very simple way of changing our communication pattern. And it is something that we have control over because I choose to communicate like that with you rather than immediately saying yes, but. And yes, but really means no. So when I say yes, but, I'm ready to push my own idea. So we have to learn and unlearn some of these communication patterns.
Love that. Pause, paraphrase, pose questions.
That's it. And I see lots of yeses. Sean and Marissa and Nicole and Anahi and Audrey, my colleague Brittany is here too. Thank you so much for sharing that. You are familiar with this, and it is doable. It is something that's actionable.
Excellent. So our next high yield strategy is thinking about the consult, collaborate, coach continuum and realizing that this collaboration happens in stages. And so it begins with celebration and then it moves into consulting. And through that consulting, we start collaborating more deeply. And then we ultimately move into coaching and building the capacity of the other teacher. So let's talk about what each of these stages look like in particular.
Yes, so we're going to bring to you an example from Lindsay Manzella and Jane Valesi, who've actually been experimenting with this continuum because you can't really, let's say, co-teach with everyone. You can't really forge a peer coaching relationship with everyone in your faculty. So they figured out that choosing intentionally which partner teacher, which colleague they're going to be consulting with, which is providing the English learner, multilingual learner lens, and making suggestions, recommendations, giving examples of what that could look like. While with other colleagues, they chose to schedule co-planning and co-teaching opportunities, especially with content teachers where the academic demand, the academic expectations were very complex. So this more intense collaboration was necessary. And finally, they were also in the position to initiate some peer coaching sessions. And we know that there is a lot of this emerging around the country. Even in Texas, a couple of school districts shifted over from ESL, ELL teachers to be named as language coaches, language development coaches. So this is not a specific assignment or a different job title, but a more complex, more comprehensive approach to guiding our peers, our colleagues to set goals, to try some new strategies for integrating content and language in their particular classes, and then to engage in that shared reflection, to just have those honest conversations. I think this worked, and I think we could do something differently next time.
Excellent. Yes. I loved when I heard about this continuum because I was all or nothing when I was in this position. I thought I have to be in deep level coaching with every teacher. And what this continuum opened up for me is the idea that I am collaborating more than I realize. I am doing all of these things with different teachers in different ways. And that is very encouraging for teachers, and it encourages them to keep on going deeper and deeper with collaboration. So it's a very powerful idea.
And it reminds us that there's not one right way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is not to collaborate, just to quote my friend and colleague John Nordmeyer, because you can't get it wrong if you take those small incremental steps towards collaboration. And as Marie says, that's the perspective change that we need to embrace. What can we do today? What can we try tomorrow that's meaningful?
Yes, love that. Now, in order to really get this consult, collaborate, coach continuum off the ground, one of the ways that we found that is so effective to do so is to begin with celebration. So let's celebrate the progression. Let's celebrate progress. And here are our favorite people celebrating. And we know that we raise what we praise. And so I'm going to give you some specific examples of what this can look like for an ESL teacher or a language coach or an ESL specialist going into a classroom, and how deeper and deeper into collaboration.
Elise,
Anything you want to say about this?
before you share, could we ask our participants, because we have over 100 people here, let's celebrate together. What is something that you're proud of that you would like to quickly share in the chat box? Just what was that moment of success or a really strong partnership or your impact on student learning as a result of teacher collaboration? So take it away. Please flood our chat box here with lots of examples of what can we celebrate? How can we take that positive approach to this work?
Love that. Yes. Let's
All right,
see.
Megan is the first one. Keep them coming. Wonderful. Success with students is getting reported. What else are you proud of? Happy to report collaboration. We're really glad to see that. Grows up your emergent bilingual students. Oh, Sean says, a co-teacher who said, thank you for working with me. Those small moments really matter. Love it. Keep them coming. We can't read them fast enough, but we're going to pick and choose a few of them. Thank you, Tamara, for sharing about coaching collaboration in your context in the Carolinas. So happy to see that you are here. Sue Ann is talking about the light bulb moments when we discuss content accessibility and language proficiency. And Audrey says we have to collaborate and celebrate across the grades. Love it. What else did you see, Alice, that stood out for you?
I see that that I'm writing my own things. Yes, but no, so many great things. Content area teachers giving and receiving thank you notes so early in the year. 50% of students designated as MLs, and every student in our high school pull-out classes are actively engaging in English. Cultural experiences from the target cultures. There's so many great things happening. I love to see these things. Classroom teachers approach to co-teach with them. These teachers are getting invited to collaborate deeper and deeper. That is what this is all about.
And you see how
Mainstream
we,
teachers.
sorry, Alice, we changed the narrative. That's what we're doing. We
Mhm.
started out by identifying barriers, but now we shifted to identifying success stories. And that's what we're going to have to share. So let's hear your success stories and your celebrations, Elise.
All right, okay. So here's how it works. Here's a very practical example of how it works. Now, what begins? We have an ESL teacher or specialist who is set to collaborate with a general education teacher. So the comic here in the yellow desk, let's call her the language specialist. And then the man standing here is the content specialist. So the language specialist goes into the room to collaborate, experiences some reluctance to collaborate, but she begins with celebration. And so she is just looking for anything in that classroom that she can celebrate. And she notices visuals. And so she says, great use of visuals. Did you notice? And here's where she offers very specific feedback how Armand, one of the students, looked at that anchor chart and used language from it. So what she is doing is she is celebrating what she sees the teacher doing and how it aligns with best practices of instruction for multilingual students. And this is encouraging him to keep going more and more with those best practices. And it's also opening the door for greater and greater collaboration between the two. So we're celebrating to gain traction in the collaboration continuum. Now, so that's how it begins. And then what happens next is you notice the teacher is now moving deeper into the classroom. She was in the back, now she's in the middle of the classroom. And she says she's celebrating, and now she's in the consult stage of the collaboration continuum. Because she says, I love the poster you put up. It's this instead of I don't know poster, which a lot of us might be familiar with, and says, how do you think it went with the students? I have an idea to have them use it if you have a moment. And so now that she has built trust with this content teacher through celebration, she is starting to consult him on how to get the students using more language more of the time. Then she moves deeper. Now, as you can see, she's in the front of the classroom. Now she's on parity with the teacher. And she is still using celebration to get there. So she says, this sentence stem that we co-planned is really helping. Here's a sentence stem here. I agree. It's really helping students stay on track in their discussions. And so now they are collaborating into this collaboration continuum. And it started with celebrating from the back of the classroom, moving in deeper and deeper with influence. And then now they're at the collaboration stage. So what we see here is that when we begin with celebration, what it does is it establishes trust and it opens the door for deeper collaboration and moving into coaching. So now this teacher and this general education teacher, this content teacher, now he has realized what she is doing in here is effective and it's helping my multilingual students. And so now he trusts her and now he is open to her building his capacity to meet the needs of ML as well. Andrea, what would you like to say about this?
I'm so glad that you brought in the importance of relational trust, establishing that trust, nurturing that trust. So in the chat box, I'm going to ask everyone to please give your best strategies. How do you do that? How do you reach out to a colleague? How do you go from a solid respect for each other, professionalism, to that next level of collaboration when we recognize each other's expertise, when we're not afraid of stepping on toes, when we're not questioning or even self-doubting? So it's a very complex process and we can't take it for granted. How does that happen? What are your strategies to build trust? While you're writing, I'm going to share my favorite one. Those of you who know me from previous workshops, perhaps you know that I'm married to a therapist. So I often borrow his strategies and bring them into teacher education. So one of those very powerful strategies is to notice and note, which is also a literacy strategy, to notice what a colleague does and offer a professional affirmation. So at least I noticed how much care you have given to this slide deck and how clearly you explained how to move along that continuum. It took me 20 seconds, but look at her smile. Look how it is necessary. It is really important for us to notice, to recognize, to affirm each other every single day. So while we're in no position to give you homework as a result of a free webinar, but we are going to give you homework, which is to please practice both those active listening strategies, the 3 Ps, and practice this type of professional affirmation. And somebody else wrote something similar. Raylene said compliments and encouragement, shout outs at staff meetings. It seems like you're thinking along the same lines. Encouragements, positive notes, words of encouragement again, being a good listener, being authentic. Thank you, Jordan, for recognizing just being your own self. You get what you see and you see what you get. Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. I had my ELL moment here. You see what you get and you get what you see. It's really, really important for us to have that kind of authenticity and transparency. What else are you noticing, at least in the chat box?
Well, as the chats keep pouring in, I'm going to go ahead and stop share and give you the share. And so then I'll start reading those out as you start sharing out your screen. How's that sound?
Sounds wonderful. So I'm taking over sharing my slide. Here we are. Oops, did it work? Did I take over?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So what else ended up in the chat box? Did you see anything new?
Yes. Listening with understanding, authentic check-ins, and providing resources. Recognize the teacher's strength and tell him or her what you learned from the lessons or instruction. Using people's names. It's the little things, right? Um, so what else do we have here? Thank you notes. There's so many. There's so much in here. Recognize the teacher's strength and tell him what you learned. Yes. So much in here. Asking questions. Wonderful.
Yes, it's really absolutely amazing what you have shared in such a small amount of time. So we have a little bit of an activity for you, which is a Mentimeter. So the way you participate is you could take your smartphone and scan that QR code, or you could open up another tab and go to menti.com and enter the code 1862970. And what this Mentimeter task is asking you is to reflect for a moment on those 4 stages of the continuum we introduced to you or reintroduced to you if you already know about these possible steps of celebration, consulting, collaborating, and offering peer coaching. And simply rank these practices by dragging to the top of the screen when you are participating on Mentimeter to recognize what you would want to focus on. What will be your priority? We know that we can practice all 4 essential strategies, but you might select a particular entry point for you. So it will not be the same for everybody. Because as we said earlier, there's not one right way to do it. It's not prescriptive. We really want to see how you're engaged in collaboration. So I want to give you about 30 more seconds before I start sharing your results, because we love Mentimeter, what it can offer us. So hopefully you were able to capture the QR code. Is it working? I just want to hear a yes in the chat box, because we absolutely love technology when it works. Oh, yes, very
Yes.
good. QR is working. Great, great, wonderful. So I'm going to switch over to the results. The code is still on the top of the screen. So if you still wanted to participate, it's menti.com and 1862970. But take a look at that, what's happening in real life. Each time a new person participates, and we have 54, 58 of you already participating, your priority being that those affirmations, those celebrations, then working on collaborating, consulting, guiding each other, or more formally engaging in peer coaching is ranked right now as the 4th option. These priorities are not ranked by any kind of importance or quality except what works for you. Where do you start? What is the entry point? What is feasible? So let's see a few more people collaborating. We have 66 responses in already. Maybe it will shift a little bit, or maybe it will stay the same. We'll see. I'm going to refresh it for a moment to see if anything changed. No, celebration is still on the top. Collaboration is the second. Oh, it shifted a little bit. If you blinked, you missed it. But I think all those, oh, again, consult moved further ahead a little bit. But I think we have clearly established that a good general starting point is that type of a celebration of success, impact on student learning, collaborative practices that we have noticed that will result in student outcomes. So I'm going to go back to our presentation and continue here. So what we would like to do next is engage in some giveaways. So we have touched upon this book a few times. And before we raffle it off, Elise, I'm going to give it back to you how you would like to conduct this raffle.
Yes. And so the book will be mailed to you from Silence Education. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is just to randomly pick one of the names off of the list of participants. It's going to be hard because I have lots of friends on here. So I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to pick a name. And then if I pick and say your name, then please put your address that you would like the book mailed to you. DM us in the chat. Don't send it to everyone, please. Just send it to me, Elise White. Oh, that's going to be tricky because there's still a lot of Elise White Diaz's. Send the address to Andrea Honixfield, and then she'll give it to me because we don't want to send it to the wrong person. Does that make sense, everyone? So you're going to only send it to Andrea Honixfield, the host. So here we go. Who is it going to be? I'm going to have two people, and I am going for, let me see here. I will go with Katie Sperling. Katie Sperling, can you put your address into the chat to Andrea Honixfield? And then Andrea, why don't you let me know once you get that?
I actually got a request from somebody that you did not even identify yet. So it would be wonderful if you just waited for a moment. If your name is picked, then we're going to invite you to share your address with me. Yes.
Sorry, I would like to give my book to someone else because I already have it.
Okay. All right,
You
good. So we get a raffle again.
Thank you.
That's amazing how generous and collaborative that is. Thank you, Katie. Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Okay.
So pick somebody else, Elise.
Okay. Let's go with Michelle Starkey. Did I say your name correctly, Michelle? All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So please put your address into the chat just to Andrea. And we've got one more. Let's go with, how about Sean Slack? Do you have the book already? You have it too? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, how about Mindy Becker? Okay. All right, so please put your address into the chat there, Mindy. All right, so I think we have our two. Is that right, Andrea?
Yes, we have Michelle and we have Mindy.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have their addresses?
Yes, I think the addresses are coming in directly to me. So thank you.
Sean says, if Andrea writes it, I buy it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. You're gonna be you're making me blush now, but that's okay. Thank you so much.
All right. So I think that we're ready now to move into the Google form. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Andrea.
Yes, definitely. So we
And
need to
so,
share this link in the chat box, I think.
hmm,
Are you able to share that link, or somebody can, all of you can just grab that link with your QR code reader?
hmm. I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay, great.
And then do you want to click a couple more times on that slide? All right. Okay, so if you can't grab that QR code, try to put that bit.ly right there. I don't know if I linked it or not.
I
But
don't think
maybe if you just give me a thumbs up once you guys are there and once you have it. Are we getting the link okay? Everyone have it?
I don't know if that opens up, but I just sent it to you. Elise, can you check it if that opens for you? Oh, everybody's
Yes.
opening. Okay, then we're
Everybody
good.
has it. Okay, I'm gonna put it in again just to make sure.
Yes, you copied and pasted it. We just left up the HTTPS, but
Oh,
once it,
thank you so much.
yes,
All right,
it's,
so we're getting the link. Mhm.
Cut and paste works well too.
thank you, Sean. And thank you for
Awesome.
the shout out for that other collaboration too.
Yes. So this form that you're filling out is about these top three strategies and gives us feedback about which one really you want to try and which one works well for you and how we can support you in the future. And thank you so much for coming into this Zoom because all of you, all of us are in the roles that we're in for such a time as this. We are making a huge impact in the lives of our students. And we are doing so by creating, fusing together two different parts that are so central, so integral to student success, content and language. And so thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for coming and chatting with us. I hope this was helpful for you. Andrea, is there anything you wanted to say to kind of close us out?
No, just a huge thank you for all of you joining us today. And we're looking forward to connecting with you at future conferences or online. Don't hesitate to reach out to us by email. Elisa and I respond to every email that we get. So we would love to hear your feedback. The Google form will be also super helpful for us as we continue to collaborate.
Thank you. Yes. And once again, this will be recorded and emailed to you, and then feel free to share it with anyone that you would like.